Hey friends, welcome to another episode of Go from the Beginning. This time we'll talk about user input. Here we're looking at a program in Go. What we see is a main method and also that we have declared a variable response of type string. And now we're using the scan method. Now the scan method is what we're going to use to capture user input. You see how we take the response, but we add an and sign in front of it. That means we are passing it a reference of type response. And what's happening at this point is that scan will record the response that you're typing in your console, and it's going to end up in the response variable. So let's run this program so you can see how that works. Okay, what we can see here is that our program is halting. It's waiting for us to type something, so we will type something. And now the program is telling us that the user typed AA. Now, the problem from a interaction aspect here is that you probably need to tell the user that they're supposed to input something. As you saw, it was completely empty, just waiting for us. So you should type something like, please type command, just to make sure that the user knows what's going on, that they're asked to do a thing. Now, looking at our improved program here, now it doesn't look like it's frozen, and you can type hi, but you can also see how the command is coming back to you. So again, let's repeat what's going on. Scan is taking whatever you're trying to type, and you are saying here is my string variable with an and that's being prepended to make sure that it's able to write to the response variable. Once it's done that, we are echoing the response back out, and that's what you're looking at. This is a fairly simple and straightforward way to collect user input. Let's look at more examples. Now in this example, we have two user inputs. That's why it's complaining. Now, what we're looking at here is two inputs. We see A1 and A2. We also see that our scan here takes these two inputs prepended with the and in both cases, but now with a comma to separate. So any number of inputs that you want to collect, just separate them with a comma. We also see that we are trying to format this string to print out the user input. Let's try to run this again. Now it's waiting for us to type something, and we could be typing something by doing 1 and 2. And now it's telling us that A1 ended up in a certain place, A2 ended up in another place. Another way to do this input is to do a 2 here, enter character, and a 1. And as you can see, you can either use spaces or new line characters to type. So that's kind of good to know as you're collecting the input. It will have the same result. The only thing you need to focus on is how many inputs and make sure those inputs are separated by a comma. Now for our next example, let's look at how we can actually use the fact that we can dig out certain parts of what we're trying to input. What we can do here is to use the Scanf and have a note at what's going on here. We are giving it a number. So 3s, this means that we're going to take a number of characters, and then we're going to say, hey, we want the rest to be digits. So what we want to be able to do is to say we're going to feed it a certain prefix. So we feed it an input, and that input we want to split it in characters being a prefix and some other characters being an invoice number. And we're going to try this on the following. So we're going to run this code. And now we're going to give it inv for inventory, and then we're saying that the rest of this prefix is the number. And now it has split up the inv, so the 3 different string characters here, and it's saying that the rest of whatever you're going to feed me is a digit, which is exactly what it's done. It's taking the inv, saying this is the prefix, and it's taking the invoice number and saying, hey, this is digits. So using this kind of formatting is very, very powerful. All you need to do is to instruct it what to do with it. Just to prove that this works on any number of digits, let's do a shorter version in which we still say 3 string characters, but this time only 2 numbers. And you can see it's able, as long as you give it 3 string characters in the beginning, it's able to say that any number of digits, whether it's 3, or 2, this will work. As we're nearing the end of this video, remember that we used scan here in the beginning to collect user input. We could scan for several items with a comma separated, and it didn't really care whether we were using spaces or end lines. Scanf is a bit more powerful as we're able to saying whatever you're trying to input, let's divide those. In this case, we divided it into a prefix and a number part. You can definitely do that. Just remember that once you start to instruct it this way, you are telling the user that they need to know what they're typing. So we can go all sorts of wrong if we're trying to do this, and we don't obey it completely by doing, let's say, 2 string characters and 3 numbers. As you see, it's still grabbing the 3 first characters and saying, hey, those 3 first characters, those are the prefix and the rest is a number. So yeah, make sure that the user strictly know what to type if you're going to use this way of splitting up the user input. This was the end of the video. I hope you found this good and something that you can use and utilize as part of collecting user input in your programs. Please consider subscribing, and I'll see you soon.